Hi, I am here with Lolita Chakrabarti, who is an OBE, and from graduating at RADA, she went on to present the children's BBC show Number 10. From there, she is a writer, an actor, a dramaturg, and she has gone on to do so many things across stage and television, such as Silent Witness, Outnumbered, Vigil, and of course The Bill. I love The Bill. And also, one of her plays that she wrote, Red Velvet, won just about every award going, was nominated for Olivier's, has now been placed on A-level curriculums. And on top of all of that, she also adapts plays as well from books and things like that, which is why we're here today, because The Life of Pi, it is coming to the Lowry from the 5th of December to the 7th of January over our festive period. And we're very excited. So thank you so much, Lolita, for talking with us at Manchester Theatre.
Oh, such a pleasure.
Thank you. So the story, The Life of Pi, obviously we've got one of hope, endurance and things like that. It's from a book which was turned into a film, so some people might know it.
Yeah.
But for those that don't, can you tell us what this story is all about?
I love that. That's a really quiet way of saying some people might know it. I mean, this book sold 15 million copies. Right? I'm like, how many people in those homes read it? Yes, the story is that you asked me about the story, didn't you?
Yes,
what the story
yes.
is. So it's about Pissin Molitor Patel, who is a 16-year-old boy in Pondicherry in India who lives in a zoo with his family. Because of political unrest in India at the time, their father and mum decide to emigrate to Canada with all the animals. So they pack up shop, they get on a boat and they sail. But the ship sinks and Pi loses his entire family. And he ends up on a lifeboat with an orangutan, a zebra, a hyena and a Royal Bengal tiger. And the story is about how he survives 227 days in the Pacific Ocean and who survives and what they eat. The story is about how he survives that endurance. And he is in Japanese shipping officials who are the owners of the ship that sank, come to Mexico where he's picked up in order to find out what happened.
So out of all the stories that you could have done, all the ones you could have adapted, all the ones that you've got bubbling up inside you as well, your own original ones, what was it that drew you to this story?
Well, like those 15 million people, I loved this book. I absolutely loved this book when it came out in 2002. And I can't, well, now I can tell you why, because I've studied it and I've looked at it and I've analysed it. But at the time, I couldn't really say why. It was just magical. It doesn't make sense, but it asks questions and it makes you keep thinking even beyond the book. And so in adapting it, it was a puzzle. How do I make this happen on stage? Because you go from India to the Pacific Ocean to a hospital room in Mexico. But all the thoughts and there's a lot about faith, but not just religious faith, about your faith in yourself, faith in environment, how when you lose hope, you need faith to get through. So there's a lot of philosophy and analysis. So all of those things made me think, oh, this is something that I'm really interested in digging into.
And we've got these fantastic puppets. So I've been lucky enough to just have a little sneak peek at how they move. But when you're kind of writing, do you have to kind of think about that? Or do you just say, do you know what, my job's to write the story, it's everyone else's to figure that out?
It's exactly that, to start with. To start with, it was just let me tell the story. And Max Webster, our director, who's absolutely brilliant, made me laugh because he sort of said, "Oh yes, Lolita will write stage directions," and then just think that's really simple, and it's actually a 20-minute event. So one of my famous stage directions was the ship sinks, and I thought, I'm not going to solve that. You're all on stage with a ship, and it has to sink.
It's got to sink.
Yeah, exactly. And what's brilliant about that, though, because I'm an actor as well, is that imagination then kicks in. So everybody has to feed into how do we make a ship sink on a flat wooden stage that isn't going to move, and everybody has to contribute to that. Lighting, sound, video, actors, movement, all of it, and the ship does sink.
Well, with that, is there anything you're able to tell us? Because obviously from the book, it's in sort of different stages, but a lot of it is set in a zoo, and a lot of it is at sea.
Yeah.
How is that on stage? Is there anything that you're able to tell us?
It was very challenging. So there's a zoo scene near the beginning of the play, and the zoo scene you are meeting so many characters. So you're meeting his family and his uncle and aunt, Pie's uncle and aunt. You're meeting all the key animals, and you're also introduced to this environment. But on top of that, you are meeting the way we are telling the story. So you're meeting the puppets and how the animals are going to be represented. And the sort of the staging of it. You're meeting so many things in that first scene. So it was a huge, huge challenge. And we opened this in Sheffield in 2019. We had about 10 previews, I think, which is once we think we've got the show, you put it in front of an audience, and then the audience tells you what does and doesn't work. And so throughout those previews, I was rewriting the zoo scene, because it didn't work. It didn't work. There were so many elements to introduce. So the version that you will see when you come to the Lowry is the version that works, just to make sure you know that it works. And that is... It's a kind of, I can't even explain it. It's a gradual introduction of all the characters, all the animals, the environment, and the staging, the choices that we've made in terms of telling the show. So that's one thing. You asked me another bit to that question.
So there was the zoo and the sea.
The sea,
yes.
So you've got a flat wooden stage or whatever it's made of, and it obviously doesn't move. But I can honestly promise you that you'll feel a bit seasick when you're watching it. I was going to say, do I need to take my tablets? You might do. It's amazing. The team, the creative team, and the actors. It feels like you're rolling at sea, and there are storms, there is rain on a beautiful day, there is a starlit night, there's a turtle, there's a shark, there's all sorts of, there's fish, but it's in a theatrical way. It's magical and delightful, but it also feels really real. I can't tell you the secrets of it. Just come and see it.
I don't want to know the secrets. That takes the imagination in magic away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got Richard Parker, the Bengal tiger. And I kind of think that as well as it just being an impressive part of the story, with Pie, it's kind of this idea that he needs that tiger for human connection while he's out there. It gives him something to stay alive for. It gives him something to do. Is that kind of idea something that was at the heart of when you were writing, that you kind of thought that there's something in that connection, even though it's an animal, it's still human connection, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the relationship between them is key. And I guess that was part of our development when we were looking at the story and how to tell it, was what's the main story. And if you simplified it, Max, our director, always sort of said, well, it's kind of a rom-com, a dangerous rom-com, if there's such a thing, between Richard Parker and Pie. But what's really important through the play is that relationship changes. And so what is the sort of basic things that I've put in is that when he first meets Richard Parker, he's a big, sort of scary animal. Then he's a really dangerous animal. Then he finds himself on a boat with the dangerous animal. Then he has to tame the animal. Then he befriends the animal. And then they're actually in love. And so that journey through it, but then they can't live together. How could a tiger and a boy ever live together? And in a way, that sort of arc mirrors a lot of different relationships in life, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And it can mirror, in a philosophical way, your relationship with yourself, maybe. So there's so many layers within Yann Martel's story that is absolutely implicit in the play, which is why I think it lots of people respond to it.
And I think another reason is that you've got all the world on stage, haven't you, with this? There's so many different representations and people, and it's like all the world is on the stage.
It is, all the world is on the stage. That's a really nice way to put it. That's part of what really appealed to me, the internationalism of the story, that, they go from Pondicherry through Manila, that's where they sink, through the Pacific Ocean, to Mexico, on the way to Canada, and it's a Japanese ship. And then I have made in the book, there's 2 shipping officials, but actually in a play that would fulfill the same point of the play. So I changed one of the shipping officials to, let me get this right, an East Asian, she's Chinese heritage, Canadian diplomat who is working in Mexico. And what I love about that is that then she is the daughter of immigrants somewhere in her family, has that Chinese culture behind her, but is very Canadian, but in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And so the elements of all of it, I just love that's the world, isn't it?
It is.
And then there's animals.
And then there's animals.
And then there's
as well.
animals, yeah.
So, without giving too much away for people who have been living under a stone and don't know the story, at the end, when Pi is interrogated, well, the beginning and the end, kind of, when he's interrogated by the people, he explains his story that he's been on a boat with these animals.
Yes.
They don't believe him.
Yes.
So he kind of says, well, okay, would you believe me more if it's humans? And I've just kind of used the power of my imagination to make... Which version do you believe, or which do you choose to believe? Was he on with the animals? Was it humans?
You know, when I met Yann Martel for the first time, I said to him, can you tell me the real story? Tell me, is it the humans are the real story, right? And he said, no. He said, the animals are the real story. And I said to him, no, come on, you've got to tell me what the real story is, because I won't tell anyone else. I need to write this properly. And he said, no. He said, you can cut the people story and just keep the animal story. That's the real story. And in giving me that answer, I thought, oh, okay. Because I had assumed the people were the real story, right? And so it changes everything.
Yes.
So I'm not going to answer your question and just leave you with that.
I love it. Just leave it. Well, yeah, that's kind of the joy of it, isn't it? Because you're watching it going, well, which?
Which is the real story?
Yeah, I love
what
that.
story do you believe?
And you will have to come along to find out. So it is going to be here from the 5th of December to the 7th of January. From what we've just seen earlier today, you would be insane to miss it. So thank you so much for chatting with us, Lolita. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Lovely to talk to you as well.
Thank you.